guess by now it's good evening, not even good, everybody. Okay, I want to talk to you about food today. Food is something that I love. And those who know me from a few years back must be realizing that I love it a bit more these days because of the impact it's had on my body. But I do love food, and I think we all do. I mean, you go to DSTV, look at how many food channels exist today. And I don't think those channels would exist if they didn't have followers. So I guess we all love food. Now, what frightens me about this, about the food issue, is that I get the feeling that we take food for granted. We don't actually look very hard at where we get the food from, who produces it, how they produce it. We just believe that you wake up one day and find that you don't have bananas. You'll just go to the supermarket and find the bananas. And, that is good enough for us. But when we talk about issues like air pollution, I think air is something that it hits you right in the face. If it's not good, you're not breathing properly, you will feel it. Food, on the other hand, if you don't find it in the supermarket, if you go there and you don't find it, you're just going to go to another one. You're never going to ask why there's a shortage of ginger one time. Why the price of ginger has skyrocketed, whatever. We'll talk about it. I don't think many of us go to the manager and ask, but what's happened to the ginger price? We never actually delve into why we're not finding it wherever we want to find it. Because we believe, I think we've been, we're totally inured of because every time we walk into a supermarket, there's food. So what I'd like to really talk about today is that food is actually, there is a chance that we might not walk into a supermarket and find food if we carry on the way that we do right now. Now, what happens these days is that you'll find that you go to farms. I did one time. I've been actually doing a bit of farm trotting around. And this is what I found. Look at that truck of tomatoes. This is a farm in Skeerput. And what they do is they were harvesting tomatoes that time, and there's a pack house there. So when they select the tomatoes that are going to go to market. And this truck here, for that hour, these were the rejects. Do you know what happens to these tomatoes? They go to the dump. These tomatoes get thrown away because they're not good enough. You know what has happened? Our ancestors used to farm. When they moved into these areas, they used to move near rivers and lakes and fertile lands. When you farm, when you harvest, you eat what you harvest. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The Industrial Revolution came. Urbanization followed. People moved from where the food source was. So the food had to be taken to them one way or the other. It had to be transported. So if I'm farming and I know that 20 kilometers away I have people who are going to buy this food, I have to package it. I have to harvest it, package it, transport it to whatever. So we formed these systems. We have supermarkets. We've got distribution systems. So when we formed these systems, we started looking at the aesthetics of food. We started suddenly to decide that tomato, it's not round enough. I mean, don't you wonder when you go to a supermarket and buy a packet of tomatoes, why they are all so perfectly shaped? They all look the same size, whatever. Has Mother Nature ever dished out anything like that? Just look at yourselves in this room. Who looks like the other, exactly, same size. So that's not how nature does it. But because somehow us human beings in our wisdom decided that food has to be aesthetically pleasing, otherwise it won't taste good. You find that that's how. So you will look at that tomato, for example. Would you throw that away? But that was in the dump. It never made it to the supermarket. Because heck, you know what, look at the packets that we have for the tomatoes. How can we fit those two in there? So let's throw that away. Look at this. Would you eat those bananas? Why do you think these were rejected? No, they're not conjoined. I used to, by the way, when I was a child, that's all I used to go after. If you're conjoined, I want you. Those are the bananas that I ate. But these bananas, okay, well, the supermarkets have their standards. They say the bananas have to have a certain curvature. They have to have a certain, yes, unfortunately, this is the society that we have become. So all of these were just rejected. What happens to them? Do you give them to people who need the food? Now look at this country, South Africa. 70%, they say, of urban poor suffer because they don't have enough food. You know that this is a country where you could be like living across from the farm. There's a fence that separates you, and you see the produce of the farm, but you still go hungry because you can't go to that farm to get the food. So food security is actually, it's defined in 3 elements. There are 3 elements of food security, insecurity rather. There's availability. Is the food available? Do you have it? Are we producing it? The answer is yes, we are producing it. Then the next one is accessibility. Is it accessible? Now, if I'm living next to a farm and I can't even go there because the minute I step on there and try harvesting anything, someone will shoot me down. I don't have access to that food. So accessibility is the other issue. And then the third element is use. Can I use that food? I might be sitting on a farm of cabbages, and I eat cabbages for breakfast, cabbages for lunch, cabbages for... So how am I using that food? It's not giving me the nourishment I need. So those 3 elements are all important in describing food insecurity. So you've got to actually be in a situation where there's a balance of those 3 for you to know that your society is going to have food. Now, the scary thing is we've started already by throwing away food. That, you know, that picture, like, the tomato one, this one I didn't take, but the tomato one I took myself. And you can imagine that was the stock that had just come in that hour. And they had started like at 5 o'clock in the morning, we're going to finish at wherever. But that was going to be dumped, plus any other whatever. And imagine how many times that was replicated around the country. So the estimates, there has not been much studies in South Africa on food waste, but there has been one major one so far. CSIR was behind it. And what they say is, in South Africa, 30% of produce, fruit and vegetables, dump. Not good enough. As for the fruit, I mean, really, a little bruise or whatever, you don't pass. It's because now, what have they done? When you go to the supermarket, tell me what you do. Do you look for the ones for the fruit with the bruises? Because they've taught you that that's not good enough. Think of yourself if you ever played outside when you were a child and you had fruit trees or whatever. Did you ever make those considerations? You just grabbed whatever was there and you ate it. But it's almost like we've all been schooled in a different way. We've all been schooled to waste food. And you know what? If you keep wasting things, you're going to lose it in the end. Now, another issue, another factor that comes into play in food insecurity is farmers. And I'm so happy, well, she's left already, that we have a young farmer coming up. Because in South Africa, the average age of farmers is around 62 to 65. And guess what? Nobody wants to take over from them. You know, farming is such a tough job. You've got to have the passion. Farmers, I believe, that's one profession that you're born. Listen, you can become a technician, you can know how to do the farming. You know that this is the soil that will do best with it. But that passion has to be in you. You've got to be a farmer. To be a farmer, you've really got to have the passion. So a lot of the farmers are complaining that their children don't want to take over the farms. What's going to happen? But yet we continue to waste our food. 61 billion rand is how much we waste in total food every single year in South Africa. And that's an estimate and probably an underestimate. How many Nkandlas could that build? Or how many roads can you imagine if with that money, how many we would build a whole road system and nobody ever had to pay at all. Ever. But that's how much we're wasting in food. So what I wanted to mention that to you. I know we don't have very much time left, but the takeaway of that is this: what can you do really yourselves to conserve food, to be more careful with what you do, not just assume that I walk into a supermarket and I'll find everything in there, or okay, that food that we ate yesterday I don't think is good enough, let's just throw it away. I challenge you to start being more careful about how you treat food. I challenge you to actually start questioning why food doesn't exist. Those of you who like cabbage, just wait in the next few weeks. Tell me the price that you're going to be paying for cabbage. Because right now, a lot of the crop has failed. The cabbage crop has failed. The prices have shot up. Maybe you'll be lucky if you can get it for 15, ahead of cabbage for 15 rand. But that's where it's going. What I'm saying is don't take this thing for granted. We've had talks about electricity. We've had talks about water. Food is a very important one. And without it, we're not going to survive very long. We all need it. So be careful how you treat it. We look at how, if you have fruit in your house that's gone, that you don't feel you can eat anymore, how can you repurpose it? Can you create compost pits? Can you make it work for you instead of just throwing it in the dump, where, by the way, it goes and creates a whole lot of methane gas that then destroys the environment? You don't want to do that. So I just challenge you to be more careful about something that we believe is just, we are entitled to, which is food. Don't take it for granted. And with that, just go and enjoy your supper tonight. Thank you very much.